They called her just the maid, until the day she owned the house. For 20 years, Margaret cleaned other people's homes. She scrubbed their floors. She washed their dishes. She quietly disappeared into the background while wealthy families lived their perfect lives. At 63 years old, Margaret had learned one painful lesson. People only noticed her when something wasn't done. But one family was about to learn a lesson of their own, and it would cost them everything. It started on a rainy Tuesday morning. Margaret arrived at the large white house exactly at 7 o'clock, just as she had done every week for nearly 7 years. The owners, Richard and Vanessa Harper, were among the richest people in town. They drove expensive cars, hosted elegant parties, and loved reminding everyone how successful they were, especially Vanessa. Vanessa never missed an opportunity to make Margaret feel small. "Don't touch that," she would snap. "Be careful with those glasses. They're worth more than your monthly paycheck." Sometimes she laughed when saying it. Sometimes her friends laughed too. Margaret always smiled politely and said nothing, because she needed the job. After her husband died, money became tight. Every dollar mattered. So she endured the insults, the rude comments, the disrespect, week after week, year after year, until one afternoon changed everything. Margaret was cleaning the upstairs office when she accidentally knocked over a framed photograph. The glass cracked. Her heart sank. She immediately picked it up. But as she removed the broken glass, something strange fell out from behind the picture. An envelope. Old, yellowed with age, and hidden carefully where nobody would ever think to look. Margaret knew she shouldn't open it, but something about it felt important. The envelope had a single name written on it. To my grandson. Curious, she unfolded the letter, and what she read made her freeze. The letter belonged to Richard's grandfather, the man who had built the family's fortune decades earlier. Inside, he explained that most of his wealth wasn't supposed to go to Richard. It was meant for someone else. Someone who had never been told. Someone whose identity was described in detail. Margaret's hands began to shake, because the description sounded terrifyingly familiar. The dates, the locations, the names. Everything pointed toward one shocking possibility. Her late husband, the man she had loved for 40 years. The man who had died believing he came from a poor family. Margaret sat down, unable to breathe. If the letter was true, then Richard Harper wasn't the rightful heir at all, and millions of dollars had been inherited by the wrong person. For several days, Margaret said nothing. She reread the letter repeatedly, searching for any mistake. But the evidence was overwhelming. Eventually, she contacted an attorney, a very good attorney, and together they began investigating. The deeper they looked, the uglier the truth became. Documents had disappeared. Records had been altered. Witnesses had been paid to remain silent. Someone had worked very hard to hide what really happened, and every trail led back to Richard's father. The investigation lasted months. Margaret continued cleaning the house as if nothing had changed. Vanessa continued insulting her. Richard barely acknowledged her existence. Neither of them realized the quiet woman vacuuming their floors was building a case that could destroy their entire world. Then came the day of Richard's annual charity gala, the biggest event of the year. Hundreds of guests attended. Business leaders, politicians, reporters, everyone important in town. Margaret wasn't supposed to be there, at least not as a guest. She had been hired to help prepare the house. But that evening she walked through the front doors wearing a simple navy blue dress. Not a uniform, not work clothes. A dress. Vanessa spotted her immediately. "What are you doing here?" she demanded. Several guests turned to look. Margaret remained calm. "I was invited." Vanessa laughed. "No, you weren't." Then a voice interrupted. Actually, she was. Everyone turned. A lawyer stepped forward, followed by another, and another. The room suddenly grew silent. Richard's smile vanished. Within minutes, the attorneys revealed the results of their investigation. The hidden documents, the missing inheritance, the fraudulent transfers. The evidence was undeniable. Reporters rushed forward. Cameras flashed. Guests whispered in disbelief. For years Richard had presented himself as the self-made guardian of a family fortune. But the fortune had never legally belonged to him. And now the truth was finally public. Vanessa looked as though she might faint. Richard tried to argue, tried to deny everything. But it was too late. The evidence was overwhelming. Lawsuits followed. Investigations followed. And within a year, much of the family's wealth was gone. The mansion was sold. The luxury cars disappeared. The lavish lifestyle came to an end. Meanwhile, Margaret's life changed in ways she never imagined. The courts determined that her late husband's estate had legitimate claims. Not every dollar could be recovered, but enough. More than enough. Friends expected Margaret to celebrate, to buy expensive things, to show off, but she didn't. Instead, she purchased a modest home, paid off debts, helped her grandchildren attend college, and quietly donated money to local charities. One afternoon, a reporter asked her a question. After everything they did to you, do you feel you got revenge? Margaret thought for a moment, then smiled.
No.
The reporter looked confused. Margaret continued. Revenge is wanting someone to suffer. She paused. I only wanted the truth. Years later, people still talked about the Harper scandal. Some remembered the lost fortune. Others remembered the courtroom battles. But most remembered the woman everyone ignored. The maid who walked through life unnoticed. The woman wealthy people believed was powerless. Until the day she proved that respect has nothing to do with money, and everything to do with character. Because sometimes the quietest person in a room is the one holding the most powerful secret of all.